one. Welcome in the latest episode of the Five on the Floor podcast on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Make sure to check out 5reasonsports.com. Spell it out, F-I-V-E. Reasonsports.com. There you can find all of our podcasts, 3 yards per carry, 5 rings, cane, synchronizonus, light skinned opinions, balls cast, whenever it is that they decide to post, Shula Bowl podcasts, and everything else in addition to our columns, our stories, our merch page. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that as we go forward, and our YouTube channel. And the 3 of us are considering doing some streaming shows. So we're gonna throw that out to you here by the end of the episode. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by the Lessons Via Leaders podcast, which is a weekly podcast show where they interview a new entrepreneur, founder, or thought leader every single week. Many of the guests on Lessons Via Leaders are from here in South Florida, and they've built huge businesses and fostered large communities and movements. Each show features a new guest that shares with the audience valuable lessons and learnings that they've amassed over the course of their careers. The shows can be found all the places that you can find our show: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere else you listen to podcasts. They also have a video version of each episode that they post to YouTube. So again, it's the Lessons Via Leaders podcast. We would not recommend a pod here that we did not enjoy, and this one's a little bit different than what you find here in the network. So check it out. It's South Florida. We're South Florida. Again, Lessons Via Leaders. And now, today's episode.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a Miami Heat and NBA podcast from Ethan Skolnick with Alphonse Sidney, a.k.a. Alf954. Brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, Ethan Skolnick back out. My voice has been a mess for a few days. I'm not really sure why, so I apologize for that in advance. But we do have the full crew here tonight to help me out, Alex Toledo and Alphonse Sidney. And we're going to run through 3 topics tonight. I know we're 5 Reasons, 5 on the Floor. We're going to run through 3 topics and probably go through 3 more topics tomorrow night. You know, there's nothing cute. What's that, 3? Well, yes?
Well, your throat's bothering you?
I don't have coronavirus. Is that what?
I'm just checking.
No, it's not hurting. It's just I don't know what it is. I did a podcast yesterday, which I enjoyed. I think it's called Sports Talk Garage. They're based up in I think Georgia, and I ended up it was a conversation about the Heat and the Dolphins, but a lot of it was about 5 reasons and kind of the direction we're going. So I enjoyed that. Check that out. But it also was the last of my voice. Like it was up and down for a couple days, and that just killed it. So trying to get it back today. So again, I apologize. This means more talking for Alf, which some of you will enjoy, some of you not so much.
Most won't.
Most won't. 3 topics.
Have you tried drinking bleach or?
I have not. I'm going to save that for a certain segment of the population and see how that goes.
All right, I'll stop derailing the show now. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. It's just everybody wants me to not be political. Do you know what I noticed? When I tweet something from Ethan J. Skolnick and it's on sports, nobody notices it. It's almost like everybody who used to follow me for sports on that account has left and been replaced by the political folks. And so it's only on 5 Reasons that I get any interaction on sports. It's interesting to me. I'm not really sure. I've been cleansing my personal account for the last year, and it looks like I've got it exactly where I want it now, but it's been odd. All right. Anyway, let's get to 3 things. And we just did an episode on Tua, which you should check out, and whether or not he's the next guy in this town. And not more than that, he is the next guy, but is he the guy who can sort of move the pendulum back to the Dolphins from the Heat? And we had a long conversation about who on the Heat might be able to keep that from happening, whether it's Jimmy, whether it's Bam, whether it's I suggested Tyler Hero, whether it's Giannis Antetokounmpo. Sorry, I did that wrong again. But we're going to talk a little bit more to it because as we speak tonight, he's yet to pick his number, but he's made this a big show. And this is one of the reasons I like him so much and liked him so much for the Dolphins and for this town. He's made it a social media thing where he's engaging everybody. I mean, can you imagine Ryan Tannehill doing this? Chad Henne? And so he wants to know what number he should pick. And you and I, Alf, have talked a lot about this on social media because there is a Heat tie here. He was drafted 5th. Somebody else we know was drafted 5th. And that person wore 3 for the Heat. And that person, who is all over social media the last week, Dwyane Wade, personally congratulated Tua and, said basically Somebody else who was drafted 5th worked out pretty well. I originally thought that Tua should pick 3 for that reason, although that requires Josh Rosen to give it up. I've kind of come around to the idea that he shouldn't. To me, that number represents so much in this town, and I know Tua wants the expectations, but there's so much weight that number is going to carry if he wears it. I really think he should establish his own thing. Do you agree?
I don't know. I just think it's a balls move to pick number 3. I think it's just really cool how it all played out. To me, it's like, as somebody who does not care about the Dolphins, like to have a Heat tie-in and have a cool storyline, selfishly, that's what I want, right? I want him to be the 5th pick in the draft. I want him to pick Wade. Dwyane Wade gave him a really, really cool shout out on Twitter. I'd like to keep keeping that legacy going would be pretty cool to me, right? It's the greatest winner we've ever had in South Florida, and then Tua taking over the mantle. But like I've also said, if he's not successful, like it's a huge fail, right? But if he had the balls to pick that number and to carry that legacy and to put all that on his back, like that just says to me a lot about the kid, right? I don't think it's disrespectful. I think it's more of an homage, and to kind of just say, okay, I can't have 13. What's the next biggest number in this town? Number 3. And I want that pressure. I want that legacy. I was the 5th pick. Let's keep it rolling. Like to me, that's just an awesome story. And what are we in the business of? Telling stories. So I would rather that. But maybe it's me being selfish, but that's how I look at it.
Well, and I'm going to go to Alex on this. I'm glad you mentioned the 13 thing. What is wrong with Dolphin fans? I mean, I don't want to put them all in this basket, but there is a segment of Dolphin fans that actually believes, and I think they're all under 12 years old, actually believes that Tua should ask for 13. I mean, do we not understand what retiring a jersey means, especially when it's the best player in franchise's effing history? I don't.
Is that real?
No, this is real. There are actual, real, living, breathing people who think that Tua should wear 13. They're all over my mentions. I mean, even he has said that's insanity. And I mean, what I said on Twitter was it's the equivalent of saying that Tyler Hero should wear 3. Like, no.
You got to start reporting these people, man.
Yeah. Alex, what's your feeling on it?
I mean, it would obviously be awesome to see, like, if the announcement came out that, Tua's going to wear number 3, I would have only positive feelings about that, right? Like, it would be great to see him try to take on that mantle and keep the legacy going, like Alf said. But, that's definitely putting a lot of pressure on himself. And immediately he has to kind of be good, right? Like whenever he does play, which might not be for a year or whatever, and he's got to live up to it. And it would suck a lot if, he just wasn't that good and we gave him number 3 and this whole crowning for nothing. But I would still feel pretty good about it. I think the other one that came to mind for me was 5 because of being the 5th pick.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, I don't really know what he should go with. 10, I don't think 10's a bad one either. But 3 would be like, okay, he's really taking on that challenge.
Well, let's look at the numerology of this town, right? Okay, so just on the Dolphins' perspective, if you look at their quarterbacks, right, Chad Pennington wore 10 pretty well for about a year and a half, okay? Jay Fiedler wore 9 okay. Joey Harrington didn't wear 3 so well. Dante Culpepper didn't wear 8 so well. Tannehill, it's not going to be 17. I can't remember. What number was Henny? I can't even remember. What number was Chad?
Wasn't he 8?
Yes, he was also. Was he 8? I think he was 8. I think.
What a forgettable quarterback.
7.
And he was here for was 7. He was
7.
here forever. That's my point. Like they had like 12 years of Henny and Tannehill. Like that is poison to a town. Like they're not bad enough to care about, and they're not good enough or interesting enough to care about. It's just like it's amazing that they went through so many years of that. To me, the number he should take is 2. To me, it's as a marketing play, it's genius. I mean, it's so obvious, it's genius. Like Tua, I mean, just wear the number 2, and there. I mean, I think I guess Matt Hack, the punter, wears 2. I mean, I think that one you could actually get. There's no legacy of 2 in this town, is there? Joe Johnson wore 2 for the Heat. I'm trying to think of it. Right? Who wore 2 for the Heat? Joe? Is he the only one?
Joe Johnson.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a look.
See, to me, that I just feel like it's corny. Like I don't know. Like to me, this conversation, to me, it's first of all, it's a stupid conversation. I know I'm the one who brought it up, and I kind of made a big deal about it on Twitter. It's a dumb conversation. The only way it's not dumb and it has any significance is if he chooses the number 3. Like, that's the only cool thing. That's the only way the entire jersey number picking would be even remotely interesting is if you pick the number 3. Any other number, I don't care what explanation. If he picks 2 because his name is Tua, if he picks 5 because he was a 5th pick, I mean, none of that stuff is interesting to me. The only thing that would be interesting is if you pick number 3. Besides that, it's just not. It's a non-story. I like the Heat tied to it.
Well, I'm looking at so the number 2 in history. A couple of these I should have remembered. Rory Sparrow wore 2. Keith Askins wore 2 for 9 years. So it's an homage to Keith. We love you, Keith. Joe Johnson 1 year, Wayne Ellington 3 years, and now the great Gabe Vincent wears number 2. I wanted to take a look at who wore 3 before Dwyane. You want the list? Here's the list. Here's the list. Anthony Taylor, 1989. The great Scott Hafner. Steve Smith.
Oh, I remember Scott Hafner.
Remember Scott Hafner? Steve Smith. No, Khalid Reeves, who was taken ahead of Jalen Rose. Bruce Bowen. Charles Smith. That's not the good Charles Smith. That's the one Pat picked late in the first round when Pat had like a string of terrible picks in the 20s. Jamie Watson. I don't remember Jamie Watson. I probably remember every player in Heat history. I don't remember Jamie Watson. LaFonso Ellis, one of the nicest human beings you'll ever meet. And then he gave way to Dwyane. Dwyane Wade for 19 years. I mean, look, I do think fans care. I know this is a stupid topic because we have nothing else to talk about, but like fans do care about this. Like this has been a big issue, and you know they're waiting to back order jerseys. Basically, I mean, we'd rather they buy our T-shirts, but they're waiting to back order jerseys. I think that you're right, Alf. That 3 would be the only one with any real symbolism. Again, 2 issues. How does it look if he's going in and taking Josh Rosen's number before Josh Rosen is traded?
Nobody cares. I mean, come on.
I don't know. I mean, it doesn't strike me as him. Everything I've heard about him, he's very team-oriented. So to come in and say, I need your number. I mean, it's different than Tom Brady, getting 12 with, in Tampa. I mean, Tom Brady is going to be retired in that number with the Patriots, but Tua hasn't actually worn this number in the pros yet. So I don't know. And it's not even his college number. So if it was his college number, it'd be one thing, but I mean, 13 is the college number. As I said, that one can't be taken off the shelf. So I don't know.
If he wants 3, you cut Rosen. I mean,
you just cut him. You just cut him loose here.
Or you trade him for a 7th round. Like if he wants 3, you just, I mean, I would just give him 3 and not even tell Rosen. Change his jersey number, and if
all of a sudden Rosen shows up whenever there is minicamp sometime in October, and there's and the number 19 is in his locker, just like randomly.
He has 00 or something. Like
right, your number has been changed. What about? There's a couple of others, and then we'll kind of get off this topic. The other one that has some symbolism, I guess, I was told the number 8 is Hawaiian for like a fresh start or something like that. So there's some symbolism with that. So I think that's a possibility. And then he could wear number 1. I mean, that's become a quarterback number lately. Kyler Murray wore it. And
he's a rightful number 1 pick. Okay, I don't hate that.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, I mean, he would have been picked number 1 if not for the hip. So I think that's a possibility. But you're right. I mean, I think that maybe it's going to take Dwyane to call Josh Rosen and say, "Hey, give the guy my number. Let him have it." And on this topic. When is Pat going to take the Marino and Jordan jerseys down?
Oh, my God. Do they remember that they're up there?
It won't even be Pat.
It'll be somebody.
Right? No, if somebody could go take them and nobody would notice.
Do you know how far back the Marino one is and the Jordan one is? Like, do you know where you have to be to actually see those?
Yeah, you have to be sitting up there in the 400 levels to see it. Me and Alf, very familiar.
We have to sit where they put me and Alex during big games.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's eye level for you guys. For me, I can't see it, but yeah,
next time they put me up there, I'm taking those jerseys down.
You should just walk right over. Yeah, I'm taking this one home with me. That tells you, like, this franchise has not had many dark periods where they needed to generate attention. That was one of the dark periods. I don't even remember the year, but like, I understand.
I thought you were talking about the Jordan one.
Well, the Jordan one, yeah, no, the Jordan one for sure. I mean, to me, that's the worst one. I mean, Marino, at least, okay, there's a reason for that. I mean, Dan's been to a ton of Heat games. I've told the story before, like, my conversations with Dan have been few and far between the last few years, but there was always seemed to be about Dwyane Wade. I mean, he really loves the Heat. I mean, and so he's been there for big games. So, and his kids do too. So I kind of, the Marino one I get, although they didn't really retire it. I mean, Mike Miller wore it, right? Bam Adebayo's wearing it, right?
Quick question: Do you think Riley thought he was starting this league-wide trend when he did that?
Of retiring who?
Yeah, like Jordan, like everybody was going to follow suit.
I don't, like Jackie Robinson, like everybody wearing 42.
At the time, I thought Pat thought, like, I'm going to do this, and then everybody else are going to do it out of respect. And like everyone just like left him hanging out there, like Dwyane Wade at the dunk contest.
Oh, that's almost like this time around when we saw all these owners, paying for their employees, and we thought all the owners would do it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right, exactly. Well, no, and instead one of them, something we should talk about. Instead, one of the teams decided to take the PPP money, it's funny. They gave the PPP money back. They haven't given Deion Waiters back, but they gave the PPP. The Lakers, that was ridiculous and embarrassing for them. They've kind of become an embarrassing franchise, except for LeBron saved their asses. Yeah, they're a family-owned business that just was basically stealing money from you and me and everybody else. I mean, I applied for small business money too. The Lakers got it. So one more jersey topic, and then we're going to move on. I put this on Twitter. Which of Mario Chalmers' jerseys should be retired, 6 or 15?
Both of them.
On the same night, I agree, right?
Yeah.
And you realize if they retire Rio's 6, then they can't retire the other guys who wore 6, like Eddie Jones and that the other guy.
That's when you take down 23 and give it to LeBron.
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly. You let him wear 20. I mean, 15 doesn't have a great legacy. It's Chris Gatling, Terrence Rencher, Wang Zhuzhu, Mark Blunt, Mario Chalmers, Okari White, and Daryl Macon. I think Rio that can get that one retired. 6 has a little bit more panache. Which one is that? That's the great Terry Mills, Harold Jameson. I remember him. Eddie Jones, Blake Ahern, Luke Jackson, Mario Chalmers, and then LeBron. I actually put this poll question on Twitter, and people are pissed at me because they thought I was serious. I mean, Rio, I'm kind of half serious, but they all got pissed. They're like, "We're going to retire Joel Anthony's number next, huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
yeah." Okay. We have to remember there's a lot of least common denominators on Twitter.
Yes.
we can't go by the idiots' reactions to everything we do. Like, there's just a lot of dumb people out there.
Yeah, I've noticed. All right, so I agree we should retire both. All right, let's get to the next the next thing we want to talk about here tonight. Speaking of dumb, and I just saw that Dan Sharfin just posted a response, voiceover Dan on Twitter, to this. What the hell is Aaron Gordon thinking? I mean, what was that? I mean, the diss track to Dwyane Wade for giving him the 9 in the dunk contest. I mean, first thing, Dwayne's not the only one who gave him a 9. And second thing, I don't know if Aaron Gordon noticed, but we're in the middle of a global pandemic, and he's stressing about a dunk contest 2 months later and going after Dwyane Wade, and he seemed serious. And I love Dwayne's response, which was basically – that he should basically trademark 9 out of 10. He's like, I just gave you a money making idea after you say I cost you $1 million. What? This is why the Magic stay the Magic.
Yes.
Right? What is this?
Yeah. Alex, I'm gonna let you go off because like you're the more current hip hop fan. I'm used to Biggie and DMX and stuff like that. I feel like this was more new school hip hop, and I don't want to just call it whack and sound like an old hater. So I'm going to let you go off. And what did you think?
All right. So I will call it whack because that's the first thing that came to my mind as soon as I played the song. Before I took it off less than 10 seconds later, I couldn't listen to the whole thing. I mean, it's just the guy has no flow, first of all. Like, the song is terrible. He comes off as corny. He almost like looks so like entitled and like a little rich boy. He almost comes out like how Nancy Pelosi did when she was eating on ice cream on national TV and everybody was like, there's a quarantine going on. Like, what are you doing, dude? Like, you want attention that bad for something that happened over 2 months ago? Like, that was a long time ago, man. That was a different world. I think this was just so corny. Like, if you're gonna do that, you have to nail it. And it was just overall a 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10. But that's how I would grade all the Orlando Magic drafts and everything they do.
Well, like, first of all, it's about a dunk contest. And like Ethan said, it's like indicative of the entire Orlando Magic franchise and Aaron Gordon's career. Like, what are you worried about? You're worried about a dunk contest, like the lowest rung on like the level of importance. No disrespect to Derrick Jones Jr., but like if you don't win the dunk contest, it's not an important thing. Like if you win it, that's a cool little trophy you put to the side. But I'm sure Derrick Jones Jr. is more worried about winning championships and making the playoffs and winning playoff games. I mean, Leif put it out there. For Aaron Gordon to go at Dwyane Wade, Dwyane Wade has been in the finals 5 times. Aaron Gordon has 5 playoff games played in his career.
Wade was being gracious by even responding, is what you're saying.
Honestly, Wade was being gracious by giving that shitty dunk a 9.
Well, that's true too. I mean, right? Exactly. And he's not the only one. That's the thing. Like, there is an entire generation on Twitter that is so myopic that they only know Dwyane Wade as the dunk judge. Like we're gonna come back in 10 years, and instead of like Dwyane averaging 35 points in the finals, okay, or winning 3 championships or everything else that Dwyane did, or all the All-Star teams, we're gonna say, oh, he gave what was Dwyane Wade's epitaph? Okay, he gave Aaron Gordon a 9 in the dunk contest. Like this is where people are. Like I don't.
But you got to remember what Aaron Gordon is mad at. Aaron Gordon is mad because Derrick Jones Jr. got a 48 on a dunk. He probably should have got a 49 or a 50 on, but that's fine. He got a 49. And then he did a dunk that before he even did it, the judges supposedly coordinated to give him a 49.
And that's why they're mad at Wade.
Just so they can tie. So he's not even mad that his dunk wasn't judged properly. He's mad that the collusion between the judges did not go his way, or they didn't stick to the collusion. Like they didn't stick to the crime, and now he lost when he should have lost. Like the dunk contest with him versus Zach, yes. Honestly, Aaron Gordon deserved to win that dunk contest. Mm-hmm. Jumping over the mascot under both legs is probably maybe the best dunk I've ever seen. And he had a few dunks in that dunk contest that were out of this world. But that dunk
one
contest,
of the best ever, literally.
Yes, but that dunk contest, what he did to the back of Taco Fall's neck is a crime in most cases. So like you can't give him he didn't even deserve a 48. Like that was like a 44. Like you can't vault over Taco Fall and want a 50. Like it's a joke.
Yeah, look, and I think Dwyane has been incredibly gracious about this, and we all love the meme, okay, of him kind of deciding what it is he's going to give him in that situation. But it's funny to me that, like, think about what's happened with Dwyane over the past couple months, right? So he has his number retired after this All-Star thing, but it was around the same time as he was out there, kind of defending his now daughter, right? Like he was in the news for that and on the circuit. And it's like everybody forgot about that now. Like they moved on to the dunk contest thing. And I think it's just funny. Like Dwyane post-career has become this lightning rod for things he shouldn't be a lightning rod for.
Yeah.
Like
it's funny. It's first of all, it's funny. Like there's people out there who think that Dwyane gave him a 9 to maintain his relevance. And it's like, guys, it's Dwyane Wade. Like I've seen that before. Like Dwyane Wade just wants in the news cycle. He's Dwyane Wade.
Right.
Like,
right.
Are you serious? And there's people who say he's used his daughter for that, which is just gross and disgusting.
Yeah, that's disgusting. I mean, that accusation is disgusting. I mean, he doesn't need. Look, it's true. Dwyane hasn't shrunk in retirement. I didn't think he would. He's gotten himself involved in a million projects. Okay, he's doing TNT, which he always said he probably wouldn't do. He's done. He's all over the place. He's on Twitter. He's active. I think then there was also Kobe's death, which kind of put Dwyane back in the forefront again because of their relationship. There's just been a lot of things that have involved him lately. And he's never shrunk for it. He does care about his branding and all that sort of stuff. His other son is playing, or was before the virus, was playing with LeBron's son. So that got attention. I mean, he's always going to be in the middle of things. He doesn't need to manufacture it like, oh, if I screw Aaron Gordon in the dunk contest, people are going to remember what I accomplished as a player. I mean, give me an effing break.
It's funny because nobody remembers the dunk contest after it happens for the most part. With almost all of the past, I don't know, 6-7 dunk contests, people just forget about it, except the 2016 one with Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine. But then over here, people are still talking about this 2.5 months later, still in Dwyane Wade's comments, Aaron Gordon coming up with a terrible song, terrible marketing ploy. And it's just this whole thing is so corny and lame to me that everybody is mad that they didn't bend over backwards to crown Aaron Gordon and literally break the rules to crown Aaron Gordon.
Right.
But,
And again,
okay, so what about
Aaron Gordon?
What about Justice Winslow's tweet?
I don't know what to make of that. I mean, look, with Justice.
A joke.
Well, right.
I think so too.
Justice is playing. Justice changed his whole Twitter personality around the time that all this stuff was going on with his back. Remember I would come on the pod and go, I thought somebody was tweeting for Justice. Yeah. Because it was totally not out of character for who he is. If you know him a little bit, he has a sense of humor. But
dry sense. So this was
dry sense. So
this was a tweet. He has a huge suit. Okay, so before let's everyone remember that when he left, he still had a very good relationship with all the current players.
Yes.
So him leaving, it didn't affect his relationship with the current players. And when he got traded, Dwyane Wade was no longer on the team. And so there's no reason for him to be mad at Dwyane about getting traded.
Well, Dwyane was also very complimentary of him, called him little brother. It took him under his wing.
They've always had a good relationship.
No, they always have. Absolutely. They've had a good relationship.
After the Aaron Gordon track comes out, Justice says, they should have let me write the diss track. I got all the dirt. This track, I got all the dirt on bro, and I know how to get in his head. That is if people. There's so many people who got insanely upset, including Skinny McGee from our Slim from our network.
Yeah, I know. So Slim
people got
pissed,
so mad at that. Do you not understand? It's an old friend giving another friend shit. And first and foremost, and someone pointed this out in my mentions, it's more of a diss to Aaron Gordon.
Yeah.
Right, saying it was so trash. They should have let me write it.
Right.
Yep.
And he does have shit on Dwyane. Of course he does. They were teammates. I mean,
it's a joke.
Right, it's a joke. But people are.
It's like if Pippen said it about Jordan. It's
well, that was like the scene, and we're going to talk a little about Last Dance after the break. But there was a scene in Last Dance with Jordan playing cards with Scotty Burrell. On the plane, and Scott Burrell, I can tell you, had a reputation when he was playing. I knew Scott Burrell's agent really well. Actually, I can tell this now. He helped me break a bunch of stories. I got the Brian Grant story first. The Brian Grant was traded here because basically Sean Holley gave it to me because Sean was talking to the Heat trying to get Scott Burrell down to Miami, and so he knew everything was going on with the Heat. And he's like. I called. I said, "What's going on with Burrell?" He says, "Well, nothing today, but oh, by the way, they're trading for Brian Grant." I was like, "Oh, okay, thank you." And okay, so he was trying. He also represented Bimbo Coles, and that was another one who was kind of back and forth, possibly come back to Miami. So Scott Burrell had a reputation though for going out late and partying pretty hard. Okay. And so if you saw the scene on Last Dance where Michael Jordan of all people was giving him shit and saying, if you think he's, at home at night, if you're a girl with this guy, no, he's not. And he threw him under the bus. These guys all know they know the history on everybody else on the team. They do. And so I don't know what Justice knows about Dwyane, but I just know that It's a teammate giving a teammate bleep. That's what it is. But people are super sensitive about justice. I understand.
Twitter is just extra sensitive about everything.
Well, they're extra, but they're sensitive about justice. And I will tell you, the Heat was a little sensitive about this too, because Justice, Justice kind of made it clear behind the scenes and the way he was acting, he didn't really want to be with the Heat anymore. And then I've told you, and I've said this on the pod, the Heat felt justified in the trade. I mean, they would have done the trade anyway, but they felt justified in the trade because Justice seemed so happy to get out, okay, on Twitter and everywhere else. And so Heat fans are going to be sensitive about that because, it's what's wrong with us? Why didn't you want to play with us anymore? Why wouldn't you get back out there for us? Because that's the other thing. Justice was about ready to return, remember? Like before the virus hit. So, and there was a question whether he was going to play for the Heat or all the rest of the season if he was still here. So I get why Twitter is sensitive, but I can tell you there's no rift between Justice Winslow and Dwyane Wade, okay? There's not. And so that was sort of way over the line. We're going to get to another topic in a second here, but I want to tell you about another great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm going to order another one tonight because my daughter finished the rest of the one that I ordered, and it's Christopher's Bakery. Christopher's Bakery can be found on Twitter at Nilla Wafer Cakes. That's also the page on Instagram and Facebook. And basically, their specialty is the vanilla wafer cake, although I added the chocolate chips to it. It was created 30 years ago by Courtney Harris's father and named after Courtney's brother who died of a seizure at just 11 years old. So they've partnered with Miami Nicholas Children's Hospital and set up a fund where they donate a portion of all the sales to epilepsy neuroscience research, since that's where they spent much of Christopher's life. They've got other cake options available for shipping as well. That's what I said. They will ship it to you. Typically, they would be hand delivering down here in South Florida. Obviously, that's not an option right now, but they will be shipping it to you. And I got mine last week. It was delicious. I held on for 5 days so that my daughter could have some. And you can actually go on the 5 Reasons, I think my IG page as well, where I didn't put her up to this, okay? My daughter goes, that's good. Give me more. And so, that's good. She's already ready to do commercials. So check out the website, Christopher'sBakery.com/5 Reasons. Yeah, well, that's well, she'll be much better at it. She's much cuter. Christopher'sBakery.com/5 Reasons. Christopher'sBakery.com/5 Reasons. And if you type in the coupon code 5 Reasons, again, spell it out, you get 15% off every item in your order. All right, we had a bunch of things we wanted to get to over the next 2 days. What do we want to get to next, guys? I'll let you choose.
I think we want to do Rodman, right? And the documentary?
Yeah, I think we do Rodman. Did you watch Last Dance? Did you see episode
3 and 4?
3 and 4. I finally finished them.
I've watched them. The only reason I'm not even really that interested. The only reason I'm watching them is so I can get the jokes on Twitter.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that you even admit that, why do that to yourself, man? You should have just kept the.
I tweeted it out before the documentary.
Well, you don't like the pacing of it. I saw there was a message. Jeff Duncan, who covers the Saints, he's covered the Saints for a long time. Very good writer. He tweeted out something today about how he is not enamored with the documentary because of the chronological pacing of it.
It's a mess.
But it's not though. It is, but it's not. It's from as someone as someone who had to write long pieces, long stories that combine a bunch of information. Sometimes I would write 10,000 word stories. Sometimes you don't. I would approach a story and say, do I do this chronologically or do I go back and forth a little bit? And if I'm going to go back and forth, how do I kind of signal it? There is a rhyme and reason, Alf, to what they're doing. I mean, if you look at it, every episode is basically the same. Okay, they start with 1998, and then they circle back to the person they want to focus on. So there was the Jordan episode, the Pippen episode, the Phil episode, the Rodman episode. I'm assuming the Kukoc episode is next.
I understand that, but even within even within the narratives about each person, I feel like they still jump around too much. I honestly,
they have to cover a lot, though.
I know, I understand this, but I'm talking about my preference. Like, I don't mind that their focus is on the '98 season, and then they go back and tell stories. But I would just like it to be just a little bit more cohesive. Like, I feel like if I didn't live through the era and I didn't watch most of this live, like some of this would be a little bit confusing for me. Or maybe it's because I did live through it. I would rather the story be told chronologically, a little bit more chronologically, because I feel like you create a narrative sometimes that, and I know that's part of why you make a documentary, to create a narrative.
Right.
But I feel like sometimes you create a false narrative when you don't tell the story in the way that it actually happened. Instead, you're jumping around, you're kind of piecemealing it together when there's actually an interesting story to be told without deifying or making anybody, like, I feel like there's a lot of hero making in the documentary that doesn't really need to happen. I feel like it would be cooler if we just saw what actually happened.
I think you just dug on something right there. I think you just found something. What if this is like part of trying to, thematically turn it into a superhero thing, because that's what's working in American media right now, right?
I mean, like,
well, it
kind
is.
of makes sense. And they're doing a background story, an origin story on all these people, and then they're all like coming together like the Avengers in the '98 season, right?
Right, but
trying to be like fight against terrors of Jerry Krause and the team falling apart.
Yeah, Jerry Krause is what, Kim Jong-un in this scenario. Look, the issue with that, Alf, though, is if you're going to tell the story chronologically, you're not going to get to 1998 until episode 10.
No, I think you can start in 1998 and then go back, but I feel like listen, I'm not a filmmaker, all right? I barely work the phone on my camera, the camera on my phone. But if you like, I can see you going from 98 and then going back. And I would rather I just rather it be more chronological. Like, I feel like they're going to do this with LeBron, and they're going to whitewash a lot of crap. You know what I mean? And like, they're going to whitewash the 2011 season, 2011 finals somehow.
I don't think so. I mean, Jordan's stuff hasn't been whitewashed. I think there have been certain stories, and I'm interested because, Alf, you did live through it. Obviously, I did too. Alex did not as much. Well, right. Okay, so I get.
I was technically alive.
Well, you were technically alive, so I do think it's interesting to get your perspective on it because if you look at it, I mean, to me, the Isaiah Michael stuff is fascinating because I did live through that. And I think I think what they didn't do particularly well, and Vinny Goodwill, who is from Detroit but has covered the Bulls, and Vinny's one of our favorites. Vinny wrote, I thought, an exceptional column about this, basically saying Isaiah did not get, and the Pistons did not get their due, and also there were some things that were whitewashed. For instance, Jordan went after the Pistons, in the press and in every other way. I mean, he basically essentially called them illegitimate champions. I mean, right? I mean, there was a lot of that, and none of that was in here. It's just okay, the Pistons were assholes for walking off the court early, which they were, but there was a history there with Michael that I don't think was particularly well told.
Yeah,
I'm trying,
that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Just it's Michael was just this guy trying so hard, and these bad boy were just beating the living shit out of him, and it wasn't fair. And they never showed the fact every time they hit him that he went to the free throw line and got points. Okay, and I put this on Twitter, let's stop acting like it's the Hunger Games. Whenever all these fouls that everyone's it was so much tougher back then, they were still fucking fouls. He still got to the free throw line. He got points every time they clotheslined him. The only difference is nowadays it'd be a flagrant or a tech. Yeah. And some of those still
most of those would be flagrant twos. Absolutely. Yeah.
Now that's the only thing. These guys didn't get kicked out of the game, but they still were fouls. He got to the free throw line. It's not. It wasn't just this free for all Wild West. That people were throwing elbows and going down the other way. They were still fouls.
True. No question.
The Pistons were really good. And Isaiah Thomas never gets his due. Somebody put this on Twitter, and they were Isaiah Thomas is the only guy who beat Jordan, Magic, and Bird all of their primes.
It wasn't just them, too. Take a look at some of the other teams the Pistons beat going forward. He beat Dr. J. They beat Patrick when at Patrick's height. They were great. I mean, they were actually – it's funny. The Pistons, I think in both cases, both of their championship groups didn't get enough credit because they were exceptionally well-constructed teams, okay? But they didn't have a Michael. But if you look at both teams – I mean, that first team, Isaiah and Dumars was a perfectly constructed backcourt, okay? Then they had Dantley and then Aguirre, so you had your scorer in the 3 spot. They had Rick Mahorn, who was your tough guy for that era. And Lambier was kind of, Lambier gets a bad rap because he was a prick, okay? But he also was way ahead of his time. Like, Lambier was a stretch 5. Like, at that stage that was unique. And then you were bringing Rodman, Sally, and Vinnie Johnson off your bench.
I mean, Sally was really good. Like,
right.
And we see how good Rodman was, but
Vinny was the Lou Williams of his era.
Prototype 6-man.
Prototype. So, that was a loaded team. And then you look at the Pistons team later, also exceptionally well constructed. We can talk about Darko and Carmelo, but that team with Billups and Hamilton, perfectly constructed backcourt. Tayshaun Prince, your long, 3 guy who could defend and also score some. And then, to have Ben Wallace and Rasheed, who was gifted up front, and some of the guys they roll off their bench, like that was a really good team too. Lindsey Hunter and such, like, so they've had good teams and they haven't really gotten credit for it. And I do think that Pistons team, you mentioned Isaiah, I posted a poll. Which of these guys, I could have put Stockton on here. I could have put Iverson, I guess, but I put like, which of these guys 6'5" or under would you want to win one game? And I put Kidd, Nash, Isaiah, and Chris Paul. And Chris Paul won narrowly over Isaiah. To me, it's no competition. It's Isaiah.
Despite the fact that Chris Paul has never gotten it done.
No, sometimes it wasn't his fault, okay?
I understand.
He did beat San Antonio, which was a terrific performance, similar to the Isaiah performance when he was playing hurt. They probably would have beaten the Warriors if he doesn't get hurt. So I think that's a little unfair to Chris Paul. He's played big in big games, bigger than Harden has. All right. But to me, like, Isaiah was better than Chris Paul. I know people who are watching now will say that's not true. I just think he was. I think Isaiah, like you said, Isaiah wasn't afraid of anybody. And Chris Paul is the closest thing to Isaiah. Okay. That in terms of demeanor, personality, size, all the rest of that. But Isaiah probably wasn't even 6'1". And he was, he went toe-to-toe with Bird, toe-to-toe with Magic, toe-to-toe with Dr. J and that group. And he, like you said, he beat them all in their prime. And I don't think that gets enough credit. And look, I'm not a fan of Isaiah professionally. I've actually had pretty good relations with him personally, which I know would surprise some people. He wanted to kill me the first time he met me because he thought I wrote a column that Dave Hyde actually wrote. Okay. And so I was on the golf course, and Isaiah, I was just the guy for the Sun Sentinel, and he was going off on me. And I said, Isaiah, I didn't write that. Sorry. This is when he got hired at FIU. And look, he was a disaster at FIU. He was a disaster with the Knicks. And, a good friend of mine actually, was on the other side of a legal case with a sexual harassment thing with him. So, was the guy who basically, went after him. So there was an issue there. There was an issue. He destroyed the Raptors. He destroyed the CBA. He hasn't been real productive. Okay. A lot of things he's done, but he was
pretty productive.
Right. Pretty destructive, productive. Right. But he actually wasn't a bad coach. Actually,
that's one thing. He was a good coach.
He was a good coach. He developed Jermaine O'Neal. Actually,
him and Larry Bird were like 2 former players that actually were good coaches. And
they were good coaches. Larry was a very good coach. Actually, Magic was a disaster, but Larry Bird was a good coach. But he was a great basketball player, and I feel like he's forgotten. And I think in this doc, he's just lumped in. By the way, does Joe Dumars exist? Because he wasn't mentioned
I feel like it's almost like it's coordinated effort to completely destroy his legacy. He's done enough. Right? Why? Because they hate him. Jordan hates him. They hate him. So this is all just slanted towards Jordan's favor. The whole documentary is slanted towards making Jordan this unbelievable superhero, like you were talking about. And that's kind of like what annoys me. It always annoys me when someone makes a film or a movie.
Aren't you a Marvel guy?
Yeah, I am. But I like make believe. If we're gonna do make believe, let's do make believe. It's like I was talking about the movie.
But I thought the point is that you can be a hero in your own way. And Jordan was a hero.
I was talking about the movie Straight Outta Compton the other day, And I did not like the movie because it was obviously slanted towards Dr. Dre and Ice Cube because they helped make the movie. This is the same kind of thing with this documentary. Anytime,
well, Eazy-E wasn't around to defend himself.
Exactly, and they made Eazy-E just look like shit.
Right.
So
same thing with
like
Krause.
just like Jerry Krause.
Exactly.
Although I saw that Casey Johnson tweeted he now, I don't think he's with his Sun Times anymore, but Casey's been on the podcast. That the Krause family entrusted Casey to the unpublished memoir that Krause was writing before he died. And they're releasing some of that, I think, on the – is Casey with The Athletic now? I think he might be. And they're going to be releasing this. So he is going to get to speak for himself, but he's not going to get to speak for himself on Sunday night on ESPN.
It's not the platform. It's not the same platform.
Right. It's a little bit different. And look, I think a lot of stuff about Krause was great. I'll go to you on this, Alex. Like, what is your – I mean, Isaiah is – I mean, was great before your – I mean, they won championships, 88, 89, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I mean,
way before I was born.
Right. I mean, how do you even perceive him? And where does he fit in NBA history for you?
I was always somebody who came up. I was a huge basketball nerd growing up. I got into the history of the stuff because my uncle, the only other person in my family who likes basketball, had this whole trading card collection from when he was like a huge nerd, watching the Heat not make it to the playoffs, and he was collecting all these cards. He gave me his whole collection, and I literally went through the whole thing. I built my own collection based off of that. And then, playing as all these legends in video games and looking up their stats and their accomplishments. I've always known Isaiah to be one of the greatest point guards ever. But that is really like the tiebreaker, right? What you were saying about him being all these guys in his prime, like that is ridiculous. Even if like you could say that and not really apply context, but that statement by itself alone is just like, yeah, this guy is up there, right? Isaiah Thomas like beating Bird, Magic, Jordan. You said Patrick Ewing in his prime. Like that's tough, man. I think I voted Chris Paul in that poll too because I think Chris Paul is amazing and him in his prime was one of my favorite players growing up. But yeah, Chris Paul hasn't done that, man. Even though he's been great, he's a great playoff performer. He hasn't done that, right? He beat the greatest of all time. He's a bunch of other greats.
He has been a really good playoff performer. It is one of the misconceptions about Chris Paul. It's always he didn't get to this round. There have been other reasons. I mean, if Harden doesn't, shit the bed as regularly as Harden does, Chris Paul probably gets there. If Paul doesn't get hurt, he probably gets there. But Isaiah look, on those teams, and Joe Dumars was my favorite Piston. I loved Joe Dumars' game. I just think he was, he was kind of what I wanted John Starks to be. He was, because when I was
completely erased from history.
He has been, but Jordan has said it repeatedly that nobody defended him like Dumars did. Dumars was the best defender on him. He would be great in this era. And the comp I've made for Kendrick Nunn, if he wants to aspire to be a player, it's Joe Dumars. They look alike. They're built alike. But Kendrick's not the defender that Dumars was. Like he would have to develop that part of his game. But
a lot.
Dumars a lot. But Dumars had a cool to him. Like he was Joe Cool. Like it was just you didn't fluster him. And again, his history's been rewritten because he didn't draft Carmelo. But if you're just thinking of him as a player, he was the quintessential backcourt running mate to a star. Like I mean, and he was terrific. But Isaiah was the killer on that team. Like it's just and just he kept coming. I mean, one of the greatest performances I ever seen was the performance on the bad ankle. Like he clearly shouldn't have been playing, and they couldn't do anything with him. They just couldn't. And he took, So I think sometimes what happens post-career with guys, like for instance, like I said, Dwyane Wade's going to be known as the guy who gave Aaron Gordon a 9, and we're going to forget about everything else he did. It's just like that. Dumars is known for not drafting Carmelo, and Isaiah is known for destroying everything he ever touched. That's basically
Michael Jordan, just a failed donor in my eyes.
Right. Well, that's it's interesting. Right. Exactly. They should do a whole last dance about the Charlotte Hornets. Okay. And it's funny. His whole ownership of the Charlotte Hornets is reflected in the way he was. Like he hasn't wanted to tank with the Hornets, and there was that whole scene about them pulling him out with 15 seconds left. And
he had never heard of the concept of tanking when he talked about it on the dock.
No, it's like it never occurred to him.
Foreign concept.
Right, we're just gonna pay Michael Gilchrist, right? We're gonna pay Nicholas Batum to make sure we try to get the 8th seed. I mean, that's basically what Michael's done since he's been an owner. Has there been anything? I do want to talk about Rodman before we go. The Rodman episode was, I thought, really fascinating. I think, again, another guy whose history has been written a certain way. If you live in South Florida, you've probably encountered Rodman somewhere. I used to see him or she in Las Olas all the time. He has a reputation for never tipping anybody. There's a lot of things that go on with him in South Florida. But again, I think it's been obscured for his body type, he's probably the greatest rebounder I've ever seen. And one of the most destructive front court defenders. Like we talk about what Bam is, like Dennis Rodman just erased people. Like I don't think historically, because he couldn't shoot outside of 2 feet, I don't think he's gotten his due. And frankly, like some of the comparisons this week, like Draymond Green is the modern day equivalent, I think are insulting to Dennis Rodman, honestly. Like, he was great, right, Alf? Like, what am I?
I mean, how many 0.20 rebound games did he have? Like, that's not even that's unheard of, right? Like, he's had so many games where he did everything else for his team besides score. And I like Draymond a lot. Like Draymond. I think now Draymond people are shitting on his legacy. I think what happens is a lot of times when you don't like the person as a person, and that's what's happening with Isaiah, you tend to shit on their career just because.
And with Draymond.
Yeah, that's what's happening. But he's not the rebounder Rodman was. Like, there's nobody's a rebounder Rodman was. He was 6'8", pulling down 20 rebounds. Like, who could you? Like, I mean, we used to be impressed with Udonis Haslem doing that, but he was doing what 9-10 rebounds a game at his peak. This guy was pulling down 20 rebounds in the playoffs.
I think it doesn't make any sense to compare the two as like directly through play style. I think they're the equivalent of each other for the era, right? Not as far as like, okay, the two elite qualities for the both of them, right? For Dennis Rodman, it was defense and rebounding. He's, for both of those, he's one of the best we've ever seen. Whereas for Draymond, it's defense and passing, as far as passing from his position. I think they're different players, but the types of roles that they played, I think that, they were the equivalent for the two great teams of their eras.
Yeah, and the thing about Rodman too, and this was covered in the doc, I thought pretty well, is that his career was basically over by the time he got to the Bulls. Like, I mean, we talk about Pop handling egos. He couldn't handle Rodman. Like, Rodman and David Robinson hated each other. Like, that was not working. And, I mean, you couldn't have two more polar opposite. I don't know why they thought that would work. I mean, David Robinson, if you ever interviewed David Robinson, I love David Robinson. I just think he's total class. And I thought was treated really poorly through the years by Shaq and everything. And I also think David Robinson's legacy has been erased too, right? Like, we don't talk about him, right? Like, as one of the great bigs, like, look at his numbers. I mean, is that only because Robinson got blown out by Olajuwon the year that Robinson won the MVP, Alf, that we don't – I feel like David Robinson's legacy has been erased somewhat.
I think when you look at all the players throughout the 90s, if they weren't on the Rockets or the Bulls, a lot of them got erased. I mean, is Ewing is kind of like – Ewing is a meme of Scottie Pippen dunking over him and walking over him, right? Even Charles Oakley is just known as a guy who used to fight off the court. Charles Barkley is the funny guy on inside the NBA. Reggie Miller gets clowned all the time, deservedly so. Clyde Drexler is not even seen. I mean, what give Clyde Drexler to do? Mitch Richmond.
And Clyde got the championship with the Rockets too.
Yeah, and we still don't talk about him because he was a shooting guard in that era. Mitch Richmond. Does Mitch Richmond get his due? Not even close. Right. Even like Timmy Hardaway. There's a lot of guys who just don't get their due because, I mean, Jordan just dominated the headlines. And, who knows if in 10, 20 years we'll talk about Paul George that way, where, because of LeBron and even Carmelo to an extent. Carmelo's going to get whitewashed too. But because of LeBron, all the small forwards of the generation, probably one of the greatest generation of small forwards we've ever seen, they're all going to get taken out.
The only one who won't is Kawhi at this point.
Kawhi because he won titles.
Because he won titles.
But that's your legacy, man. Win titles or just get forgotten.
But with Robinson too, like Robinson was ahead of his time, and I don't think this gets. I mean, Robinson was an athlete playing at that height. Like he was a totally different type of player. I mean, if you can imagine, I mean, again, Bam is shorter, but there are some similarities there. Bam's like 4 inches shorter than him, but there are some similarities there. I just think David Robinson is one of those guys that doesn't. And the other thing was David Robinson got kind of pushed aside by the guy who came after him on the same team. You know, like
because they give they give all the credit for his first
title to Duncan. Right.
To Duncan, yes.
To Duncan. Could you imagine two guys like that playing together in today's game? I mean, how do you make
Bam and Embiid?
Bam and Embiid. Yeah. Well, I mean, you had Olajuwon and Sampson. I mean, Sampson could have been a Hall of Famer if he didn't keep getting hurt. But yeah, I mean, just getting back to the Rodman topic, you know, in the current era, like I think Rodman could still play today. You know, obviously he has no stretch to his game. But just as far as I mean, he was a one-on-one take the challenge defender. But could you imagine him switching on a bunch of pick and rolls like teams do now? And the way that he would guard people, I just think he's gotten very, very overlooked. And I think, you know, again, they made it a lot about Carmen Electra and, you know, and I get all that. And the 48
we got to go over some of these quotes. Like that Carmen Electra thing was amazing. Then you talk about who was it? Was it Ron Harper that called them straight bitches, or was that Horace Grant?
That was Horace Grant. It was Horace Grant.
That was fantastic. It was Ron Harper who was like, "Yeah, I'm in. Fuck it, whatever. What's up?" or something like that.
I know, and it's funny. They haven't used Ron a lot to talk because Ron always had that stuttering problem. So I feel like they haven't put him on as much, but Ron's a funny guy. If you ever been around Ron, like he's got it. But yeah, Horace, there hasn't been a lot about Horace. There hasn't been a lot about Tony, although I know that's coming because obviously that was
upset if they don't do a Horace Grant episode. I guess because he wasn't on the '98 team though.
He wasn't. He was. They're not going to feature him. He was.
That is a guy who was. I mean, what he did for the Bulls, and then when he was on the Magic with Shaq. Then when he was on the Lakers with Shaq, that guy has done – I mean, he has done a ton of winning, and he didn't get a lot of respect.
Well, he's a little like – I mean, he has a Haslam quality to him. I mean, I think, you know, there's some similarities in the way that they played. He was a great running mate to Shaq. One of the things that I think Shaq said when he came to Miami was that he saw a lot of Horace Grant in UD. So, yeah, I mean – but Horace always got confused with his twin brother. And his twin brother Harvey was a little bit of a better scorer, but not as good an overall player. But yeah, the Rodman stuff is fascinating to me. We've talked a little about Kukoc. I think they're going to get into him. I think Kukoc in today's game, I think we said he'd be a better Gallinari, which I agree with. He's a better playmaker than Gallinari. But I'm with you, Alf, in the point you're making about how they've whitewashed certain things to make Jordan look better. And I think what's funny is not better as a player. It's hard to do that, but just better in terms of all the narratives. And I think what was said before these episodes was that even Michael said, everybody's going to hate me after this, but I don't think that the documentaries have really done that, right? Like they've deified him.
I wonder if it's because we haven't gotten to the part of, you know, the other stuff he was known for during his career.
What,
the off the court stuff? Yeah.
The gambling? Yeah.
Like that, they're going to even detail that at one point.
Even then, they're not going. It's not going to be. I mean, are people really going to bash him? Because people know that stuff already.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to talk about his father getting killed. They're going to talk about they're going to make the baseball thing, and I think it was a sincere effort. He wanted to be good at baseball, but they're going to touch on that. Are they going to touch on all the conspiracies that Stern basically told him to go away because of the gambling? I mean, the only gambling they've really focused on was him basically taking Danny Ainge's or playing Danny Ainge right during the series against the Celtics when he was a young guy, and then the playing with Burrell on the plane, right? And then Michael basically saying that he walked into a room. I know he's talking about Orlando Woolridge and those guys, okay? Like he walked into the room and walked right out when he saw the coke and the strippers and all that stuff.
Yeah, and we all believe Michael Jordan walked into a room of coke, gambling, and strippers and said, no,
I don't want to hear this. I'm going to go to church.
Sure.
I don't believe it. All right, so we'll see. We'll talk about that more. So we got some other topics we're going to get into later in the week. I want to do this. The Heat have been putting people on their IG page, their Facebook page, and everywhere else. They've been actually making a lot of guys available. They had Shaq the other day. Tonight they had Norris Cole and Mario Chalmers. I want to talk a little bit more about those guys in the next step. Also, there's this talk about facilities opening up, I'm trying to get some information from the Heat about whether or not, Florida is one of the places where this can actually happen. I also have some inside stuff on how the Heat are approaching the salary cap situation and what that's going to look like. So we're going to get together again tomorrow and talk about all this. We're trying to spread some of this stuff out. So check out all of our sponsors. Again, the Seltzer Mayberg Law Firm can be found at onecalllegal.com. That's onecalllegal.com. They've got someone there 24 hours a day to direct you to the right attorney. They are working, even with the courts closed here. They are working. And if you just got a traffic ticket, I saw it today I was driving. I don't know. The cops were all over I-95. They have nothing else to do, I guess. If you got a traffic ticket, you should definitely get that checked out. You got an immigration issue. Those are not going away during this crisis. So definitely reach out to onecalllegal.com, the Seltzer Mayberg Law Firm. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for listening to the Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons of Sports Network.